Okay, I am going to give a quick rundown of this question from uh, Blender. Oop, wrong one. This one. Fusing Blender Stack Exchange, fusing depth maps to get 3D shape or to get a 3D shape. Um, and I proposed a workflow. The problem is this workflow is really in depth. I mean, I simplified it here. I figured the best way to show how those things are working is to probably um, get a basic understanding of how to get depth maps and create 3D object meshes out of them uh, because of the information provided in the post. Uh, this, for instance, this this paper on GitHub shows a particular workflow here for how to render those viewports, which probably is where the confusions came from in some of the comments. My intent was to make each one of these to take that and to turn them back into the 3D thing that was seen inside of this tetrahedron or whatever it is. So anyway, the uh, source information, the source data came from that link in there. The zip file had a bunch of separate uh, image files. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop into, I went ahead and downloaded those. Let's go ahead and hop into what it means to kind of go through that workflow. Now here's what I don't know. I don't know how to reconcile the mapping that came from this image. Like, I don't have that data. Maybe it's listed out here a little bit more. I mean, I don't have the text file or anything. So you'll have to reposition all of those planes, and I'll kind of hit on how to maybe start going about doing that. Part of that is going through this particular post, um, how to orient things, or orient your view to a plane, things like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an empty here, and then I have a images as planes add-on, which I just have it enabled. Anyone can get it. User preferences, interface, and then, sorry, not interface, add-ons. Start typing in images here. You'll see it. Import, export images as planes. Go ahead and check the checkbox, save the settings, close it. All right, so I'm going to hit Shift A. We're going to go to Mesh, Images as Planes. Then I have this whole, I'm just going to hit A for all. So we have this whole list of everything. We import the images as planes, and here's all of those planes. I'm going to go ahead and move this over, I don't know, 3, maybe 2 units. I just want to see, I want that empty to be what it is. So now if I click on one of these planes, let's go ahead and look with that. So that's cam 0. So that should be named very similarly, if not exactly the same, as the image that really belongs to. And we can check that because we can look at the, oops, sorry, the texture, and we can see what that is. Um, so those are the actual images that were provided, but they're mapped to a 3D flat plane at this point. Okay, so now to begin going through somewhat of the workflow I was describing is I'm going to go ahead and create a global driver to drive all of these off of this empty. And to do that, I should say a global slider, really. I'm going to create a custom property. I'm going to add it, scroll down, edit. Prop is fine, but this is the global strength, really. So we're going to control global strength from there. So go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to right click on that and say copy data path or shift control C. Okay, now we'll come back to why we're going to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and get the first image here, and I'm going to go up here to the little wrench icon. It's the object modifiers button in the properties view. I'm going to go ahead and select displace for a modifier. And I'm going to go ahead and set mid-level all the way up. And we're going to, because we had loaded in all these images as planes, it automatically loaded, it did two things for us. It automatically gave us all the UV mappings appropriately because these images are perfectly square resolution-wise. The default 2x2 plane or whatever they are came in perfectly. But those images are also available because the textures came in. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a texture out of that same image that came in. And now something goofy went really horribly wrong, and that's okay. Go to UV here and then set mid-level all the way back to 0. And that puts it back to where, just so you can understand that that's trying to grab a global piece of information. The problem is there needs to be a highly subdivided version of this plane. So to take care of that, I can tab into it. I just hit W, which brings up the specials menu, and I hit S for subdivide, and I just do that. Whoops, WS, 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 and I keep going. Maybe one more is probably good. Okay, so now when I hit tab to go back to object mode, we see this huge strength, and this is where you can adjust the strength, and you'll see that image start to come out in 3D. And it is, and let me go into a solid mode, it is truly a 3D object in space. Like, I'm going to go to front view here just so we kind of see it. And as we modify the strength, the height of that changes, and it will displace that subdivided mesh, all those little vertices that are now available in that mesh. It'll change according to the strength. So now let's go ahead and we're going to do that. I mean, repeat that same exact process for all of that and figure out how you're going to orient these on their angles according to the paper that was, right, the rendering viewport angles of where all these images were taken from. I don't know what those are, so I'm not going to spend the time there. Anyway, but what I will do is I will map this, and then I'll do another one so you can kind of see why that global strength changes all that. So I'm going to add a driver to the strength. So right click on the strength field, go to add driver, and then manually create later. And then over here in the graph view, make sure that this mode is set to drivers, and you'll see your drivers on the left. If you don't, well, you should. Anyway, if you don't see this, you can hit the in key, as in Nancy, and you'll see this pop up. So click on your driver, and then make sure you get onto the drivers tab. And then we're going to switch this to single property. We can click the little eyedropper and hit the empty, or you can just get into your object list and go to empty. And then in here, I'm just going to hit Control V because remember we copied that data path. And on the empty, there's this property called global strength. And then we just assigned it to this variable called var. Now in the scripted expression, if we just type in var and hit enter, now as we go in here and we change this strength, it should, oh, something's wrong here, 0.9. That's on the displace modifier. I don't know why that's not updating. Anyway, let's go back over here. Oh, there we go. It's updating. Maybe just had to catch up. So I'm just going to set that now. So now we can come over here. I can copy this driver. And now when we do the setup for this again, displace, so we're selected on cam 1. So let's go ahead and set that to cam 1. Set the mid-level all the way down. Go to UV. And then right-click and paste that driver. Now come in here, tab, again, WS, WS, just keep subdividing. One more. And there we go. So now you're starting to get 3D objects out of everything. Now, I know the resolution on these look funny. You can always take care of that by adding another subdivision surface modifier on top of that. Maybe bump that up to a 2 or a 3. But you're going to get a lot of mesh data in all of these. But once you can get all of those views, you can orient and intersect them. Before I would orient and intersect them, I would tab into each of these, or sorry, I would apply this one, apply the displacement. Now you can't adjust that by this anymore, only the ones that don't have the apply on. So once you get it to exactly where you want it, apply it, and then right click on this guy. I'm going to get a face in here. I'm going to hit Shift G. I'm going to say everything that's coplanar to that, X, and then just delete edges and faces. And now you're left with the 3D object that raised up out. Now there's some faces and stuff that disappeared because of that. So take care, whether you're deleting edges or vertices or faces. Anyway, that was a quick way to hurry up and get Shift G, get sorry, with the face selection, Shift G, and you can get coplanar. No, maybe you could switch that to your vertice mode, go into your shade mode, and then maybe, deselect only the inside or something like that. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of care, but you should be able to do that manually anyway, and then go and align all these together and solidify them or what have you. But make sure you're aligning them per the normal on the per the face. And to do that, of course, so I can rotate this thing out of whack. Rotate it that way, rotate XX, something like that. And then we can switch this to view normal. And then, of course, based on the angle the image was taken from, we can slide those together, you know, from any direction they've come from. Of course, hopefully without any of this background information, because it'll just make it extremely noisy and hard to see what's going on. And then once, when you have two things really close together, when you have vertices that are really close together, you can join them. Once everything looks right, you can hold Shift, select two things or two or more, hit Control J to join. But I had a modifier applied to that, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select just this one, go back to global, we'll make it intersect that one, for instance. Hold Shift, select that, Control J to join. And then when you tab in, and I'm just going to select all that, we'll subdivide a bunch of this stuff. Okay. You can hit W, tab, sorry, be in edit mode, select everything, W, and then you can merge, or you could remove doubles, things like that. So removing duplicate vertices, there's nothing close enough together, but you have a threshold. So if things don't quite line up, but they're really, really close, you can increase this threshold a little bit. And as soon as I went to 0.01 units, it removed 60 vertices because 60 vertices were close enough. So it joined those things together. I'm going to undo all that. Tab, and then undo from there. And that way they're separate objects again. Anyway, that was the idea behind everything, is if you can remap those projections. Yes, you can do that from Python if you have them. I don't know that information from where these were taken from, and I don't want to try to figure out what angle they were all taken from. Anyway, but that's an approach. It'll get you a 3D object, and if those are truly from those angles, it should reproduce the same result that you were looking for. Anyway, hope that helped you.